Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Calvin Tobin Show. I am your host, Calvin Tobin. Today we have a lot to talk about, so let's get right into it. Alright, now real quick, Tampa Bay Buccaneers head coach Bruce Arians has been cleared off the COVID-19 reserve list and is cleared to coach the Buccaneers against the New York Jets, and now the Buccaneers have no issue. They have both their leaders in Arians and Brady to lead them into what might be a blowout victory against the Jets. Now, what I'm about to get into is one of the most unfortunate things that could ever happen to a single sport, and it doesn't matter what sport you're a fan of. Every single sport, even at collegiate level, every single one has an icon for that sport. Like Hank Aaron with baseball, Michael Jordan with basketball, Wayne Gretzky with hockey. Now, for football, oh geez, this is so sad. One of the greatest football minds and possibly the greatest football guru, John Madden, has passed away at the age of 85. One of the greatest businessmen in an industry you could ever know of. And with John Madden, this dude left nothing on the table in his life. He was an offensive lineman as a player. He was a legendary head coach, legendary broadcaster, and he was also a legendary video game creator because he created, but it depends on how you view it, but I'm pretty sure a lot of people can vouch for what I'm about to say. He created the greatest video game ever, and it's called, as we all know what it is, it's called Madden, and he started it in 1990, and it's been skyrocketing, and it's been unbelievably popular ever since. John Madden was one of the greatest people you could ever met. Never saw a sad face on him. Like, this guy, as long as he had a football in his hand or he was watching football, this dude could always smile. With him as a legendary coach, he has the highest winning percentage in NFL history. Yes, over Don Shula, over Bill Belichick, over Andy Reid, over Tom Landry. He has the highest winning percentage in NFL history at 759 with a record of 103, 32, and 7. And he put the Raiders on the map. And now, into the late 80s, early 90s, he became a broadcaster and was a channel turner. And let alone in being a channel turner, it says a lot if you're that dude where it doesn't matter what the situation is that once you know this person is on TV, you want to click and turn the channel to go watch or listen to that person. And that was John Madden for the NFL. And unfortunately, he is gone. Rest in peace. Now, bowl games are finally over in college football, and there were epic games left and right. From the Sugar Bowl to the Rose Bowl to the college football playoff games. Like, college football weekend and New Year's Six bowls were absolutely insane to watch. Now, to start off with the college football playoff, we had Cincinnati taking on Alabama, and we had Michigan taking on Georgia. And after these games, it looks like the rematch between Georgia and Alabama come January 10th at 8 o'clock. We are going to see a great rematch, and who knows, Georgia might be a lot better in this game, and they just had an undercard game the first time around against Bama, because as of all year, Georgia has a historic, or at least for the regular season, had an historic season, allowing just over 7 points a game. Georgia's defense is one of the greatest college scoring defenses ever. If you only allow 7.5, something like that, 7.5 points a game. Absolutely ridiculous. But in the college football playoff games, both of them were blowouts. And towards the end, Georgia and Alabama weren't really trying as much and didn't really try to run up the score. But for both these teams, with Michigan and Cincinnati being in the playoff for the first time, I'm very impressed for what they have done this season, especially Cincinnati, because they are a group of 5 team. And what are the odds of that kind of team, or those kind of teams, getting into ranking, let alone a college football playoff game? Round of applause for them. And let's see how long Luke Fickell can keep this going for Cincinnati, because now college football is changing. We're starting to see more and more generational talent all around college football, and it's going to make the NFL even better. But out of all the games that I watched in the college football bowl games, starting from the college football playoff games, the 2 best games to watch were Ole Miss versus Baylor and Ohio State versus Utah. Now let me get into Ohio State versus Utah. In this game, it looked like at the end of halftime, with Utah leading 35-21, that they were actually going to run away with this game. But after that, CJ Stroud said, "Oh, hell no," and he absolutely completely pulled out in the second half and led them to a led Ohio State to a last-second field goal to win the game 48-45. This game was going back and forth, score after score after score. But the most intriguing and impressive thing about this game is, I think you guys know who I'm talking about if you watch the game, is Jackson Smith-Njigba. This dude broke Rose Bowl records, and so did another Ohio State player, but I'll get into that in a second. With Njigba's record, it was so ridiculous. Even for a bowl game, it's going to be a long time before this record is broken, let alone it might never be, because of how impressive this was. He broke 2 records in one game for a bowl game. It was most catches with 15 and most yards with 347. Yeah, 300. Not kidding there. There's nothing wrong about that. 347 receiving yards. In this game, Utah just didn't want to cover Jackson, and he absolutely torched that Utah defense, and it was just unfair for those corners with Njigba. Because also, what's even more impressive about this, of him getting that record, Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave were both not in this game, because Chris Olave is declaring for the NFL. But Ohio State just had a ridiculous game in this Rose Bowl game. Now, the other Ohio State player that broke a record was CJ Stroud, and he broke the record by over 100 yards. He threw for 573 yards along with 6 touchdowns. Even though it was a high-scoring game and it was really close, based on defenses, both offenses absolutely torched each other. And it was just, like I said, it was just going back and forth with the score. Now, with what CJ Stroud has done as a freshman this year, he is going to be a great player, and probably one of the best quarterbacks that Ohio State's ever seen. I mean, I get that Ohio State has Troy Smith, who's won a Heisman, but C.J. Stroud almost did it this year as a freshman. I would have no doubt that C.J. Stroud would win a Heisman if he stays 3 or even all 4 years at Ohio State. Ohio State's got a great quarterback for the future. Now let's see how far he can take them. Now the other game, Baylor versus Ole Miss. Now let me get into this. This is the most interesting thing about this game. A few years ago, about 3-4 years ago, Baylor was a completely irrelevant team, and there was never a reason to talk about them unless they just had a complete shocking win over a ranked team. But 3-4 years ago, the sports administration for that school decided they're going to go all out on everything. Sports equipment, health protocols, everything, the whole 9 yards to really turn around this program. And it has worked over the last 2 years for both basketball and football, because last year Baylor was unbelievable as they got into the top 5 ranking. I believe it was top 5, top 7, and that was last year. They got to the Big 12 but lost to Oklahoma, who practically wins the Big 12 championship every single year. But other than that, Baylor, with all that upgrades, Baylor in basketball and football both turned into top tier teams. I'm not talking about where they can be like ranked like 12 to like 25, where that's a like good team but not a top tier team quite a bit, but they are actually top tier teams. Baylor won its first national college basketball national championship last year, and they torched their opponent Gonzaga by 16. Now Baylor is about to be a complete relevant school for a while, and nothing is better than having more and more good and relevant teams to watch and talk about, because good games are always fun to watch. The more better teams there are, the more it's going to happen. Now, and with Baylor, they definitely got a bright future ahead of them with both their basketball head coach that they hired in 2003 and the head coach that they hired earlier this year, and what brought them all the way to the Sugar Bowl victory, winning 21-7. Now, in this game, Baylor, it was an all-around great game, and Baylor got the more big plays and took more advantage because they got lucky and had skilled players get them the big plays all game long. But also, how different could this game could have been if Matt Corral didn't have that leg injury in the first quarter, because I really think we did not see Ole Miss at its best. So Ole Miss could have, maybe not, could have won this game if Matt Corral did not get injured. But their backup did a solid job. Just couldn't get consistent with the scoring. He got them down the field a few times, just couldn't get on the scoreboard, while Baylor is scoring multiple times in this game, and that's why they won 21-7. Now, what's up with LeBron? Where did all this great shooting and scoring come from? Like, even being at 37 years old in his 19th season, like, I get he's top 2, top 3 greatest basketball players of all time, and we've seen him do all this kind of stuff, but what we have never seen is a guy who is 37 years old and 19 years into the league dropping 30 plus points a game. LeBron is averaging 28.6 a game and just freaking torched his opponent the other night by dropping 43 on their head. And he's had 7 straight 30 plus point games, and in that 7 game stretch, he scored 36 points a game. Like, I really feel bad for LeBron because he is like overperforming as he usually does on bad teams. But he's overperforming like crazy. It's not bad, but I'm hoping that they can fix this of getting Russell Westbrook into a rhythm. Even though he's the second best player, he's got to get better at shooting. AD's got to get healthier. Carmelo, even though he's also in his 19th year, just got to be a little bit more consistent with making shots, because based on the players that the Lakers have, they should not have the record that they have at 18 and 19. They should have like a 23-24 win season right now. They should not be below 500 based on how good the team is. But that might just show on how big ego is for every single one of these veterans on this team, because the Lakers are practically the oldest team in the league, and LeBron yet again is carrying another team through the playoffs when we're all expecting them to perform like they should, and they're just not. Now, history has been made by the one and only Devin Booker himself, as he becomes the 7th youngest player ever to record, to get to 10,000 points. Devin Booker is an all-around great player and has shown it since day one. And like, why wouldn't he be a great player? He has a great mentor in Kobe Bryant, and it's very funny because it's kind of a string line when you think about it, and it might, because a player might follow after Devin Booker and follow in his steps, because Devin Booker is trying to mirror his game after Kobe Bryant, and Kobe Bryant had tried to mirror his game after Michael Jordan. So how far is this line going to trickle down? Who knows? But with Devin Booker, 10,000 points, and he's doing it with not really ease, but he's doing it in style and having fun with it on a great Phoenix Suns team, having fun with Chris Paul and DeAndre Ayton and making everybody look bad, and having one of the best records in the NBA today. And he is also the youngest player to ever score 70 points in a game, and he did it at 20 years old. Devin Booker definitely has the potential to bring a team to a championship. Who knows? It might be this year. They might get redemption. Can they get back? Being 28 and 8, I think it is for the Phoenix Suns, they are definitely in the spotlight to make a run back. We're just going to see when playoff time comes. And also, one last thing about Devin Booker is when no one's guarding him, even when you have to, if you slip up on guarding Devin Booker, he can look like one of the coldest shooters in the game today, and sometimes the coldest shooter, depending on how on he is during whatever game he is playing. Now, speaking of coldness, if you watched the Winter Classic last night, you know that this game was an icicle, because last night was the Winter Classic as Minnesota took on St. Louis, and this game was definitely, if not the coldest game in sports history. The only other game that I can think of that was colder than this game was the Ice Bowl, that was negative 13 degrees all the way back in the 60s with Vince Lombardi and the Packers game. But with it being cold, it was -9 at regular, -9 with a wind chill of -25. Like, this game was so cold, people actually had to make sure that they didn't have to go pee or it was going to freeze while they were peeing. But other than that, this coldness took a toll on all the players, and the main factor in this game was to see how much coldness could these players handle, especially the goalies, because they allowed in total 10 goals in this game. And St. Louis ended up coming out with a victory, winning 6-4 and getting their 19th win on the season. Yeah, even though for how cold it was, the youngsters still showed out, as Kiru had 4 points with 2 goals and 2 assists, and Kirill the Thrill got 1 goal and 2 assists and finished with 3 points. Kirill has got a bright future ahead of him because he got Rookie of the Year, and now he's turning it up a notch, going into his sophomore year into the NHL. And based on how good they're doing right now, Kirill has a very high chance to take them very, very far. Maybe not Stanley Cup Finals, but he could definitely get there. Now, also with this game, St. Louis had complete control of this game over Minnesota because they were, even going against some of their best players, they were able to create separation, and because of that separation, they were able to rush up and down the ice, messing with the Wild, making sure that they don't get a goal. And this was a blowout, even though it was 6-4 and it was only a 2-goal difference. But at one point it was 5-1 and 6-2, where St. Louis was winning by 4 goals. The Minnesota Wild just came back a little bit. But in this game, the goalies, don't blame this on the goalies or any of the players based on how this game went. This game was in the definition of icy cold because, like I said, it was -9 as regular, -25 with wind chill. And because of the coldness, it made the players' performance get flawed, and that's why it was such a high scoring game. And especially for the goalies, Jordan Binnington and Cam Talbot, these guys don't normally let up 4, 5, 6 goals a game because they are top tier teams in the Central Division. Now, if this game was inside, the score would have been a lot different, and who knows, maybe Minnesota would have even won this game. But it ended up being 6-4 and the Winter Classic, and it was an all-around great game, even though that St. Louis kicked their butt. Now, history has also been made in the NHL, and who else could it be? None other than the Great Eight, Alex Ovechkin. This dude is, because he is in his 17th season, and for what he has done throughout his career, now at this point, we're just seeing on what other records he could possibly break until he gets closer to Wayne Gretzky's record, which is 50-50. Based on how Alex Ovechkin is performing, on if he might pass him in goals, with Wayne Gretzky having 894. But the record that Alex Ovechkin got is now have the most power play goals made in NHL history with 275. Alex Ovechkin, I've said this time and time again, and I'll just keep on saying it. The Great Eight is just an elite scorer, greatest goal scorer of all time. And like I said before, it's only a matter of time if it happens that Alex Ovechkin might break Gretzky's goal record, because, and this is the craziest part about Ovechkin, is that he's still in his 17th season. Other than last year, because of COVID, he has scored, like based on his career averages, he's averaging 45 goals a year. That is so freaking elite. The only other person who has averaged 44 or even 45 goals a season for every year of their career was Wayne Gretzky, scoring those goals and him being the obvious GOAT of hockey. And Alex Ovechkin is just slightly ahead on goals scored per season. Now, the only way, in my opinion, that Alex Ovechkin is going to break Wayne Gretzky's goal record is obviously keeping up the pace he is going at, but he also has to play 20 seasons, because I do think his 20th season, if he goes to play that long, which I am sure he will, that's the thing about Alex Ovechkin, is that I really feel like that the 20th season is the magic number, when averaging 44, 45 goals a season. That is the magic number to be able to top Gretzky's goal record. Now, when is it going to happen? Who knows? I'm just excited to see if it's just going to happen at all, because of how crazy elite Alex Ovechkin is. And he's towards the end of his career. Now let's see what other records he can possibly break. Alright, that's the end of the Calvin Tobin Show. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel at Calvin Tobin Show so you don't miss out on any sports media. And please follow me on Instagram at Calvin Tobin Show as well, so you don't miss out on any sports news whatsoever.